Hi everyone. Imagine the Mediterranean Sea at the end of the 16th century. Out of the haze emerges not just a ship, but a true floating fortress, taller, longer, and more terrifying than any ordinary galley. She has 3 masts, 20 oars on each side, and hull sides so high that enemies cannot climb aboard, and most importantly, she can fire. But here's the question, why did Venice, a city of canals, not ocean ports, create this monster? And how did ancient rowing galleys suddenly transform into the direct predecessors of ships of the line? The answer lies in one war, one man, and one very risky engineering idea. And if you think a galeass was simply a big galley with cannons, you are mistaken. Now we'll explain why the Ottomans feared them, while the Venetians themselves didn't always fully understand what they had built. So, let's dive in. Here is the complete story of the Venetian Galleass, from deadly threat to legend. Mid-16th century. The Ottoman Empire is expanding its fleet of galleys at an alarming rate. The Republic of Venice realizes that its own galleys will not withstand such numbers of Turkish vessels. A standard galley carried only 2 to 4 guns in the bow. In battle, it could fire only straight ahead and then had to immediately close in for boarding. Venice needed a ship that could stand in a line and bombard the enemy from a distance, long before this became standard practice on the oceans. But building sailing galleons from scratch would take too long and cost too much. So the Venetians made a clever move, they took the largest vessels they already had. You might be surprised, but the ancestor of the Galeass was not a warship, but a large, slow, yet very capacious merchant galeass of the 13th-15th centuries. It carried spices from Alexandria to Venice. It had the same long hull and oars, but almost no protection. In the 1540s, the engineer Cristoforo da Canal, remember this name, he was a genius of the Venetian arsenal, began a major reconstruction program. What did he do? He did not shorten the ship. On the contrary, he kept the length, reaching up to 50 meters. He added a raised forecastle, a forward tower, and an aft castle at the stern. He reinforced the hull structure to withstand the weight of heavy guns. He installed a full rig with lateen sails, plus top sails. Galeasses carried between 20 and 40 guns. Some were placed along the sides, this was a first for a rowing vessel. Others were positioned at the bow and stern. But the most interesting detail, the broadside guns were mounted above the rowers' benches, not between the oars as on some advanced galleys. This allowed them to keep the rowing deck intact, even though the number of oars was reduced, 24 to 28 pairs instead of the 30 to 32 found on a standard galley. One engineering puzzle that is often overlooked, how do you row such a massive vessel? The answer is that the rowers on a galeass did not work during battle. They rowed only for maneuvering in calm weather or when entering port. In combat, the ship usually stood at anchor or moved under sail. Often, other galleys had to tow the galeasses into position. 200 to 250 rowers simply could not generate enough speed to move a 200-ton floating fortress effectively. Venice desperately needed these ships due to a chronic shortage of rowers and the desire to dominate the Mediterranean. The first galeasses were built in secret, but in 1569 they were all destroyed by a devastating fire in the arsenal. Enemy spies celebrated victory without firing a single shot. Yet just a few years later, even more terrifying monsters were launched. 70 guns, crews of nearly 1,000 men, hull sides as tall as fortress walls, and the ability to sail even in winter, when ordinary galleys hid in port. How did Venice manage not only to rebuild its fleet, but to create ships that contemporaries called floating castles? Let's break down their design. The most serene republic had a chronic problem that is rarely mentioned in heroic histories, a severe shortage of rowers. Galleys required hundreds of slaves or mercenaries, and Venice was not a vast empire. Every rower meant enormous expense, risk of mutiny, and complex logistics. The solution? Create a ship that needed fewer rowers per ton of displacement and relied instead on guns and sails. It sounds paradoxical, but the Venetians made it work. The numbers are impressive even today. Let's walk along the hull. Length, from 47 to 55 meters. For comparison, Columbus's Santa Maria was only about 25 meters long. The largest Galeass was equivalent to more than 2 Santa Marias placed end to end. Beam, 8 to 9 meters. And here is the key detail, the length-to-beam ratio was about 5.5 or 6 to 1. What does this mean? A standard combat galley had a ratio of 7 to 8 to 1, very long, narrow, fast, but unstable. The Venetians deliberately made their ship wider. They sacrificed some speed in exchange for a much more stable gun platform. The cannons could fire more accurately. The propulsion system was a true hybrid, worthy of admiration even by 21st century engineers. Oars, up to 32 benches per side, they had reduced the number on purpose. Each oar was pulled by 4 to 5 men. A single oar could be 12 to 15 meters long, only well-trained teams could handle them. Sails, 3 to 4 masts with lateen sails, plus topsails. But there was an honest drawback. Galeasses were slow. Under oars, they could not catch a regular galley. This reveals their true tactical purpose. The Venetians never intended to chase the enemy with the Galeass. They placed these giants in a line in front of their fleet, like immovable floating batteries. The enemy had to come to them. And then the nightmare began. Armament, from 30 to 70 guns. This is the most impressive part. Early Galeasses carried around 30 guns, while later ones could have up to 60 to 70. What calibers? From light 3 to 5 pounders to massive boat chase guns that fired stone or iron shot weighing 20 to 30 kilograms. The main design feature was that the gun deck was positioned above the rowers, sometimes below, depending on the specific design. The hull sides were significantly higher than on any ordinary galley. Boarding? Good luck climbing a wall as tall as a 2-story building while being raked with grapeshot from the superstructures. The forecastle and aft castle, forward and stern towers, carried additional guns, allowing devastating longitudinal fire along the enemy's deck, the most feared type of attack against rowing ships. Ordinary galleys feared winter storms. Low freeboard and open decks made them extremely vulnerable. But the Galeass could put to sea even in winter. Its high sides protected it from heavy waves, and its sails allowed it to sail in crosswinds. Imagine the panic of an Ottoman admiral who, in the middle of January, sees a Venetian squadron with 50-gun Galeasses on the horizon. It would be like discovering today that your enemy has fighter jets capable of flying in a hurricane. They were never built in large numbers. Each Galeass was a unique, individually designed masterpiece of the Venetian arsenal. Losing one was a catastrophe. Winning with one was a triumph worth fanfares. And now, having examined the design, let's imagine for a moment that we are in the skin of a rower sitting under the gun deck while 50-pound cannons thunder overhead. What do you think it was like down there? Or would you rather have been the captain of such a monster? The main theatre where the Galeasses were used was the Mediterranean Sea, in the struggle against the Ottoman Empire. By 1571, Venice had 12 operational Galeasses. 6 of them formed part of the Holy League fleet under the command of Francesco Giuodo. Their first major battle took place at the Battle of Lepanto in 1571, where the Holy League fleet, commanded by Don John of Austria, clashed with the Ottoman armada led by Muezzin Zard Ali Pasha. The Galeasses were positioned in the vanguard. Because of the headwind, they had to be towed into position by galleys. The thunder of their heavy guns literally shattered the Ottoman formation long before the main engagement even began. The Ottomans split apart and tried to sail around them, afraid to engage directly. They decided to press forward, only to collide with the rest of the Christian fleet. It was the Galeasses that made an enormous contribution to the largest galley battle in history. After the battle, Don John of Austria personally congratulated Francesco Duodo on his role in the victory. When Don John later wrote a letter to King Philip II of Spain praising these ships, the monarch immediately ordered the construction of his own Mediterranean Galeasses at Spanish shipyards in Italy. Álvaro de Bazan the Younger organized their construction in Naples in 1572. The Spanish Armada in 1588 used 4 Neapolitan Galeasses in its campaign against England. They sailed in the vanguard, but overall they did not perform well in the Atlantic. They were simply too slow and cumbersome for the open ocean. After the Battle of Lepanto, the Galeasses continued to be improved. Shipbuilders increased the number of rowers and tried to enhance their speed. However, they were often criticized for their high cost and lack of maneuverability. During the Cretan War, also known as the War of Candia, from 1645 to 1669, Galeasses were actively used once again. This was the fifth Ottoman-Venetian conflict, fought over control of the island of Crete. The Venetian fleet regularly included Galeasses in its squadrons, usually between 4 and 7 vessels. They took part in key naval battles in the Aegean Sea, including the battles near Paros and Naxos in 1651, where 6 Galeasses operated under the command of the Mocenigo brothers, the battles at the Dardanelles in 1656 and later years, and in operations to blockade Ottoman supply lines to Crete. In these engagements, the Galeasses once again served as heavy artillery support. They protected sailing ships, bombarded Ottoman galleys and transports, and safeguarded convoys. Although by the mid-17th century sailing ships, galleons, were rapidly gaining dominance, the Venetians continued to value Galeasses for their ability to operate in calm weather and in narrow waters where pure sailing ships often struggled. Venice remained one of the last powers to actively use them, right up until the end of the 17th century. The Galeass is a classic example of Venetian engineering genius and pragmatism. They took something that already existed, large trading galleys, and transformed it into a weapon that shifted the balance of power in the Mediterranean. These ships were born out of necessity to counter the Ottomans. They performed brilliantly at Lepanto and continued to serve effectively even during the Cretan War, even as the era of pure galley fleets was coming to an end. By the beginning of the 18th century, they were finally replaced by fully developed sailing ships of the line. Thanks for watching.